Hey everybody, this is Chris, as always, coming to you live from the library on behalf of Cinephellas, the only website for all your cinephilic needs. And yes, the pain from my wisdom tooth extraction is feeling better. Thank you so much for asking. You know, you're very delicate people. I love it. It's very nice of you. So, last week we started a new series called Chris's Classics. And the premise of that series is that each episode we discuss a historic film that is in some way or in multiple ways very relevant today. We had a great time. We had a lot of fun talking about Logan's Run. We had a great co-host named Logan6. You should definitely check out the video if you don't believe me. He was phenomenal. His performance was huge, Trumpian style. But this week, we're going to shift gears a little bit and take things in a more serious direction. I mean, after all, that's what's great about the platform that Cinephellas is offering us as a community, right? To have dialogues about fun, but also serious topics. So this week on Chris's Classics, we'll be examining Paris is Burning, the game-changing 1990 documentary that, it was pretty much the first film that gave visibility to New York City's drag ball scene of the mid to late 1980s. The documentary itself was controversial in that it focused on gay, black, and Latino men during a period when the AIDS crisis was really starting to hit the United States pretty hard. And there was this general fear of homosexuality among males specifically at that time. Even more controversial for many scholars was the fact that the film's director, Jennie Livingston, was a white woman from an upper-class background. But we'll dive a little bit more into her personal history later. Despite being a hugely important cultural artifact, unfortunately, few mainstream audiences have even seen Paris is Burning. So that's why I think it's really important, before we continue the conversation, to get everybody up to date and have a quick look at the trailer. So I'm going to play that now, and then I'll see all of you on the other side.
I'd always see the way the rich people lived, and I'd feel it more, It would slap me in the face. I'd say I'd have to have that, because I never felt comfortable being poor. I just don't. Or even middle class doesn't suit me. Seeing the riches, seeing the way people on Dynasty lived. These huge houses. And I would think these people have 42 rooms in their house. Oh my God, what kind of a house is that? And we've got 3. So why is it that they can have it and I didn't? I always felt cheated. I always felt cheated out of things like that.
You have space to do all that you intend to. Now the categories are Butch Queen, 1 through 17, and for the girls, 18 through 30. As far as all of y'all not walking, please realize that we all, at one time or another, have lusted to walk a ballroom floor. So give the patrons and the contestants, a round of applause for nerve. Because with your vicious motherfuckers, it do take nerves. Believe me, we're not going to be shady, just fierce.
Those balls are more or less like our fantasy of being a superstar, like the Oscars or whatever, or being on a runway as a model. A lot of those kids that are in the balls, they don't have 2 of nothing. Some of them don't even eat. They come to balls starving, and they sleep in under 21, or they sleep on the pier, or wherever. They don't have a home to go to, but they'll go out and they'll steal something and get dressed up and come to a ball for that one night and live.
Alright, well, welcome back, and let's dive into some background information on Jennie Livingston. So, she's born in Dallas, Texas, grew up in Los Angeles, and was living in Brooklyn at the time she started documenting the drag ball scene. She graduated from Yale, in 1983, and she's the niece of director and producer Alan J. Pakula. I think I'm saying that right. Pakula. And of course, he's most notable for the 1962 film adaptation of To Kill a Mockingbird, starring, here we go, trivia time. That's right, Gregory Peck. The great Greg Peck. Some of her other projects after Paris is Burning were Hotheads, which was created through the AIDS research-friendly Red Hot organization, and that film explores two comedians' responses to violence against women. It was shown on MTV, which is pretty interesting considering that, nowadays we don't really associate MTV with a lot of very political content, but in the late 80s, early 90s, it was a hotspot for that kind of very revolutionary cultural production. Another one of her projects was Who's on Top from 2005. It was her first dramatic film starring Maren Hinkle, Shelley Mars, and Steve Buscemi, the great Steve Buscemi. Steve Buscemi, he just pops up everywhere. So many random films, he's just there. She also directed a film for Elton John's show at Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas, and she also taught and lectured at universities around the world, including at Writers' House at Rutgers University, New Brunswick. Interesting. I taught at Writers' House in Rutgers University, New Brunswick, but unfortunately Jennie was there years before me. The film Paris is Burning is very widely regarded around Rutgers, and it is shown in many different classes among many different disciplines, but unfortunately I never had a chance to work with Jennie. Maybe one day. We shall see. Her current project, or I should say most recent project, is Earth Camp 1. Look for updates on that soon. But now, back to our main attraction, Paris is Burning. The movie was released in 1990, but it was filmed in the mid to late 80s. So what you see in the finished product takes place over a series of years. It was made with a grant from the National Endowment for the Arts prize, so not a grant, a prize. And that was very controversial at the time because the National Endowment for the Arts is a governmental organization, right? And at the time when, on a national level, the United States was afraid to sort of acknowledge what was going on with the AIDS crisis, here we have a film that is supporting the kind of subculture that is most associated with AIDS. It's a film about queer culture that was endorsed by the federal government. That in itself is a kind of big stepping stone in having later conversations about LGBTQ rights that we can dive into later. So after the film's release, it won 11 major awards between 1990 and 1992, including an Audience Award for Best Documentary at the San Francisco International Gay and Lesbian Film Festival. That was 1990. It won the very first Open Palm Award, now called the Breakthrough Director Award, at New York City's Gotham Awards in 1991. And in 1992, it won an NSFC Award for Best Documentary at the National Society of Film Critics Awards. In 2015, on the film's 25th anniversary, it won the Cinema Eye Honors Legacy Award. So it's a pretty significant film. As I said, right, it represented not only a look at a community without visibility up to that point, but it also inaugurated a new genre of documentary filmmaking. The Sons of Tennessee, which focused on the ball scene in 1950s New Orleans. Leave It on the Floor, which focused on troubled youth that find their way into the Los Angeles ball scene. And Shakedown, a documentary about Los Angeles' black lesbian strip club scene. So we have to remember here that this was, the late 1980s in which Dallas, Dynasty, these visions of white wealth were everywhere. And everybody else, all other communities were sort of on the outside. Paris is Burning also left a really unique legacy in pop culture. So voguing, for instance. Madonna gets a lot of credit for bringing voguing to the mainstream with her song Vogue from 1990 and the music video. But Malcolm McLaren actually had a song called Deep in Vogue a year before that. Ninja, mentioned him. He was in the Malcolm McLaren video, Deep in Vogue. He brought voguing, after the movie, he brought voguing to Europe and Japan and walked runway fashion shows. Unfortunately, he passed away in 2006 due to AIDS-related heart failure. Dorian Corey, on the other hand, the sort of older figure in the film, the voice of age and the voice of experience, putting on her makeup through many of the scenes, she toured in a cabaret drag show called the Pearl Box Revue in the 1960s. She had a fashion line called Corey Design, and eventually, after the film, continued to perform, but died of AIDS-related causes in 1993. Funny enough, really interesting story. After she died, a mummified body of a man named Robert Worley, aka Robert Wells, was found in her closet with a gunshot wound to the head. There's a story called The Drag Queen and the Mummy by Edward Conlon that you can check out if you're interested for more on that story. My personal favorite character in the film is Pepper LaBeija. Pepper taught modeling for much of his career, but had several diabetes-related complications that led to amputations of both his feet, and he died of a heart attack in 2003. He raises a lot of very interesting questions about drag and kind of how far the legendary children are willing to go, because he comments very specifically that he would never have trans surgery because it's something that's irreversible. So within the film, we have these figures that represent the entire experience of drag life, from those that are just doing it sort of with their costuming or their outward appearances, to those that are doing it like Venus, for instance, who is seeking surgery for a full change. There have been several re-releases of the film. The videocassette versions are long out of print. In 2005, it hit Hulu and some other streaming platforms, and then soon after it was released on DVD. You can get some rare copies of it on Amazon, for instance, eBay. But randomly online, if you search, for instance, there are several Reddit threads with links to websites that have the film in full, so you can watch it for free. I would definitely check that out. The good thing about this afterlife and these various mediums is that Paris is Burning has become an educational tool used to educate LGBTQ youth and allies of the LGBTQ community on what it's like, the kind of experiences that, these people who are living very complicated lives that are very difficult because mainstream society is not always very accepting. They can turn to this film as a sort of educational tool and conversation starter. So I personally give Paris is Burning 5 out of 5 hair pieces. I know that's a pretty serious claim, but I stand by it. It's an important cultural artifact that helped American society move towards today's debates about same-sex marriage and several other issues surrounding LGBTQ rights. So once you see the film, let me know your thoughts. As I said, this is a very, very sensitive topic. We want to think about all the ways that, this film can be seen as revolutionary in a lot of cases. If you're interested in this kind of, diving into popular culture artifacts, their meanings and their relevancy, and you're interested in some of the other reviews that I've done for Cinephellas, check out my new live streaming show on the bidchat.com website. My show is called Popography, that's Popography, and the website is called Bidchat, Bidchat. It is, the title of the show is Pop Culture Biography, and not only do I do solo shows where I review certain pieces, we focus on music, movies, TV, art, really the whole spectrum of culture that influences us and the kind of personal relationships that we form to these things, which then influence our personal and professional lives. So I'd love to see you there. There's also a great interactive option, so you can call in and speak to myself or my interviewees directly. I, of course, am Chris for Cinephellas. I look forward to seeing you next week. Until then.
But I think the best thing we did was Roy Rogers. That was fun. You would have had something to eat. Because how much did you pay for that sandwich?
I don't remember, maybe $5 or something.
Around $5. Make no mistake, we got your $5 back. I had 2 double cheeseburgers, 2 fries, a Coke, a Sprite, and an orange. Chicken and chips. I was going back and forth. I lived on that line. We got over around $200 in food.
See, they put cheese on the meat.